Hi, and welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay. Tonight is the 8th episode and also the last of this season. It's been absolutely a joy to do these interviews, talks with different people. Hello everyone watching. This tonight is a little bit special because we have a menage a trois. I have two guests on tonight. You could almost call it the recovery power couple. Tonight I'm having Mr. Musser Lever 2009 and his partner Adam. So Mike Lunter and Adam Lunter. I'm probably pronouncing that last name wrong, but they'll correct me in a moment. Should we bring them on? Let's do so.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
That was perfect.
Did I pronounce it right?
You did. And people don't. And you nailed it. Very good.
Well, it's European last name, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yes. Yugoslav, Czechoslovakian. Yes, from my father's side.
There you go. So it's name-wise, it's probably like a very Danish dramatic pronunciation of it, Lunter. So there we go.
People here in America don't get it. So, and it's so easy. But
well, it's like talking to an American tourist, and then they go, "Are we going to Leicester Square?"
Yeah.
Should we jump just right into it, because we have two people tonight, so double as many answers. We'll start with the first question. What do you prefer? I call you, names, pronouns, and titles.
All righty. Well, I'll go first. My pronouns are he, him. And you and I have known each other for a long time. It's been a few years since we've actually been in the same vicinity. Yes, I've got some really good memories. As far as, calling me, I prefer people to just call me Mike until they get to know me. I've never once called myself sir. That was given to me by the community for my involvement, which I'm very humbled and grateful for. I do prefer to earn someone's respect first. And if they want to call me sir, then that's fine. But Mike is really fine.
Cool.
Yeah, and same here. Just Adam, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
Fantastic. Tell me just a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I'm the superior one in every way. No. Just had to get that right out.
Yeah, remember when you were out there still tweaking and everything like that? I was in the AA taking cake.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yes. Okay. Touche. Let's see. I'm 62 and going on being sober 5 years in just a few days, September 8th.
Fantastic.
So
you're in the same month as me.
We do indeed. My drug of choice has always been meth. I've had a really good long career, and as you had wrote, I've been a therapist for many of years. I did retire from that profession, but I still work full-time in medical technology. So I'm a born and bred and remained in Midwest USA. That's me.
Yeah, and so I celebrated 24 years of sobriety in June, the end of June. And
Congratulations.
Yes, 45 years old. So I never had a legal drink, but got sober when it was finally legal for me to drink in this country. Right?
Which is irony in itself.
It is, but what they say, people plan, God laughs, and I think he was having a ball that day. But, but I've stayed with it for a long time, and I've really loved it. I've been really fortunate, though. I've lived in a lot of different places. I grew up in Oklahoma City and also for a bit in New York. And so right now I work for a Japanese company that handles IT and process automation software and also visual technology. And been with them for just about a year and a half. But yeah, for the most of my life, I've been doing something with Japan or with Japanese language. So
Fantastic. And you've kind of answered the third question, but I'll answer it anyway, or ask it anyway, because I've done it the other episodes. Completely sober, clear-headed, or social drinker?
Completely sober.
Completely sober.
Yes. And the fourth question, which kind of leads us into whatever this gonna end up being, because if you've seen some of the other episodes, I don't know where the conversation's gonna go, which is the fun bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
What is clear play to you, and why is it important?
Clear play?
Yeah, clear play, clear-headed. I try to use the word clear instead of clean because there's too many negative connections with it.
Sure.
That's what I wanted to make sure that I heard the right word there.
Yeah.
For me, it's everything, especially now being sober and clear-headed, you know, and not just to be clear-headed, but also, you know, I tend to be Dom, you know, although I am versatile, but even when I'm versatile, I tend to be Dom and bossy at that as well, you know. But I want to make sure that whoever I'm playing with is taken care of. You know, needs are being met on both sides. And when I was using it, you know, it was more selfishness, more what I wanted, more what was in my head, not what was in the other person's head. It wasn't very didactic. It was all me, 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 you know. And it kind of goes with the spiritual principles that I've been learning, you know, playing clear-headed allows me to be in the moment, you know. And when I was using meth, and a lot of other meth heads could relate to this, while I'm playing and using meth, I'm already thinking about the next 2, 3 other people I'm going to meet up with, you know. I'm completely missing what's going on now. So, and to add to that, there's another component for me, and that's my health. You know, I'm getting old. There's nothing worse than seeing a 62-year-old meth head, you know, or someone who's really drunk or something like that, you know. And I don't want other people to say, "Oh God, look at her. She was so good." You know, that'd be like, you know, the Barry Manilow song, Copacabana. There's Lola in the dress she used to wear, faded feathers in her hair. You know, I don't want to get that way. So.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to imagine the feathers in your hair, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do that.
Oh, okay.
Peacock feathers.
Okay, yeah, whatever you say.
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah. We're goofballs, just so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were expecting any kind of seriousness in this, you just need to...
No. Do I look like someone who's serious, really?
Forget it. It's now the Mike and Adam show.
No. And Adam, why is clear play important to you?
Actually, I don't know any other way. I got into this when I was about 16 years sober. And my first, you know, forays into it were with other sober members. You know, the first time I ever attended a leather event was IML about, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. And the person I was dating at the time was actually working with one of the vendors. So I had a chance to sort of walk around the vendor mart and start asking questions. But at that time, you know, meetings were a regular thing. And I knew a few people that, it's like I knew they were into leather, but I didn't expect them to be at IML. But sure enough, there they were. And we all had a meeting, and then we all went out and had dinner. And that was when I started asking questions, and that was when I started learning how to do things. And you know, for me, clear play is just, you know, it's the way to, like I said, I just don't know any other way. I can't imagine doing it any other way. You know, I think, you know, like Sir Mike said, you know, I've learned to really, you know, be in the moment, both in my sobriety and also during something like this, you know, and it's taken a lot of courage to ask questions, discipline, and also open-mindedness, which, again, wouldn't have had prior to getting sober. Mm. So that's, like I said, for me, it's the only way, but it's really the only way just because that's the only way I've known.
Yeah, it's as I've said, like I posted about it a couple of weeks ago on my Instagram. I posted about the book Lost Men and Meth, which I'm still in the middle of reading. I'm on page like 140, which I'm taking in chunks because some of it stirs up emotions. Absolutely. It's a hard read for a former meth user.
I've only got half of that book and had to put it away. And
Yes.
I'm ready to pick it up again, but it's a very difficult read, but I think if one can get through it, it's a must.
It's a very good book. I think my only but about it is you definitely get the impression that the person who wrote the book is taking it from the perspective of a meth user that came into fetish, not a fetish man who became a meth addict. So there is a little bit of an undertone of judgment for,
Yes.
and you definitely have to give up the old ways. Where in early recovery, I was told you have to give up your fetish because it's too connected to drug taking. I'm a stubborn cow. I will not listen to that. So I just found my own way back into fetish because I had fetish before drugs. Mike, you've known me since I was 24 years old. And young and blue-eyed and like, oh, no one's going to hurt me here. And you were in the, what number were you again?
Is in the class or final ranking?
No, in the class. You were 22, I think.
Right, I had to think about it. I was 22.
Yeah, because you were one between me. So you were a part of my queue.
Yes.
At the back and so on. So you know me, I was completely like deer in headlights the whole time. I had an amazing time, but so I had all the fetish gear and stuff like that before I did drugs. So when it was so connected with the drug taking, and that's one of the things they explain in the book, is this cohesiveness between your sex drive and drug taking and how hard it is to split, but it is possible.
It is possible.
It just takes time, a lot of time and energy and patience and tears and yelling, and then you get into after the sex. But yeah, it's you will recognize this.
Yeah, but I think it was also cool too because I came on when you just started your journey in sobriety and were coming back into leather, you know, and because I remember you were sort of the first event we attended. I like telling this story, but the first event that we attended together was MAL in like 2016 or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
It was January 2016.
Yeah. It was my first leather event. It was his first leather event sober.
I was like 4 months sober and at a leather event. And let me tell you, I was in the sober rooms like this.
He was wound up like a piano wire. He was definitely wound up like a piano
jaw
wire.
Jaw tight, everything.
Yeah. You know, because like I was more, I wasn't really nervous, but like I had a lot of questions about like what was going on as far as the event was concerned, as far as what people were doing. Meanwhile, you were asking me questions like, "How do you know that person? Did you sleep with them?" And I'm like, "No, I know them from the program." He's like, "You know everybody from the program. How did you?" You know, and it's like at the time it took it was 20 years worth of
I gotta say
networking, but you know,
whenever he knew someone, it's true. I always said sleep with them, you know, and I wasn't being nosy. He got really aggravated at me at one time. It was just like, this is blah blah blah.
Oh, I never said it wasn't your business.
Oh, I like to embellish.
Okay.
So
please embellish. It's much more fun.
Much more fun. Yeah, you know.
It's only live, so we can't edit.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I had a keen interest in knowing how he actually met people. I came of age in the 70s and 80s, and there was no grinder, there was no internet, there was no nothing outside of keys and hanky codes.
You walked uphill both ways in 5 feet of snow to your hookup.
Now you got a good picture of it.
Exactly.
Good.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
And I was grateful. Yeah. But you know, here's where back then in the good old days. No. I never met a friend. The way I met friends was sleeping with them. Yeah. We slept, we fucked, we became friends sometimes. So I did that my whole life. I did not know how to make a friend without flirting, without fucking, without doing something. You know, so I was very inquisitive. Teach me, how do you do that? Because I sure don't know. And the program also helped me immensely, but that was my reasoning back then was like, how do you do that? He used to say things like, well, I'm going to go socialize. Is that okay? I'd be like, fine. And I'm like, how do you socialize without a buzz? How do you socialize without... I was scared shitless. I couldn't walk up to someone, even in a sober room, and go, hi, how do you do? I'm Mike. It took me months to learn how to do that without trembling knees.
I remember even the first few meetings we went to at MAL, it was weird. Like, I was supposed to be the sub and I was like fully there, but like we walked into the room and all of a sudden things changed. And I'm like, I'm going up and I'm saying hi to people and I'm like, yes, this is my Sir Mike. Sir Mike. Say hi.
And I'm glued to him.
Well, yeah, I fully recognize the whole, like, not knowing how to engage with other gay men unless it involves a cock, some meth, and maybe a bed. I perfect example is I sing with the London Gay Men's Chorus, and I met other gay men who don't like to talk about sex. Which was mind-blowing to me. Why wouldn't you want to talk about fisting within the first 5 minutes?
Exactly.
But a lot of the people in my chorus are very British about it. They're just like, oh, no, we don't. That's in the bedroom. We don't talk about that, which is brilliant. It's like, of course there's people like that. But I've always been in an echo chamber of fetish men who are very sex positive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was interesting for me too, I think also because, I didn't even come out until I was 8 years older, which just goes to show you more will be revealed, but they don't say what or when or how. But the other thing, I know I say that a lot, but, I think luckily by that time I wasn't scared to meet people and I wasn't scared to make friends, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And this is what was good about that experience though too, was I actually learned a little bit about protocol and learned a little bit about how to come correctly and about how to, ask what I wanted to know without being not intrusive, but like, it's interesting. How most people in the fetish community are usually very receptive to questions and they're usually very okay with asking. I mean, like, that really surprised me. And I think it surprised me so much that I just sort of thought, okay, I can just talk to anybody. And I didn't realize, there are certain ways to address people and there are certain ways that you ask questions. Even if you wanted to try something, I actually needed to defer to Sir a lot to make sure that I was dealing with somebody that he was okay with. So in a real sense, it was sort of the beginning of a real education for me about power exchange and also about more than just the mechanics of it, the discipline, the relationships, the stuff that, like I said, I think if I had come to an experience like that without having learned a little bit about proper social behavior, because I was the kind of drunk that fell all over the place and threw up and didn't see why you were suspended the next day.
Yeah. I think at one point, especially at the end of my using, I used to have an app on my phone where I would track where I've been.
Oh, God.
So I would almost like a badge of pride show at work where, look, I fell over there and I was drunk there. And that's where I lost my Oyster card and my travel card and all of that just seemed really normal to me. Now looking at it is like, well, that's just tragic, really. That I have to have an app on phone to just kind of have a notion of where I've been.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. For whatever it's worth, too. I mean, I think one of the nice things about only knowing how to do this clean is that I don't have to explain. I don't have to explain it. It's like I know where I was. I know who I was with. I know what happened. And, again, fetish events aside or not, for a blackout drinker like me, that's a big deal to be able to answer all those questions and, and know that stuff as well, too. And, I'm starting to run dry a little bit.
Oh, you're doing good.
It's that, like, especially with meth and so on, your short-term memory kind of goes when you're playing around. So on the way home, you will have that sinking feelings like, I know I played with a lot of people, but I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a lineup. Forget it. It's just, they were just cocks and bums to me. Faces, names, who cares?
Yeah. Really.
And it's just that very empty feeling afterwards. And definitely I would get that with drinking as well. I never categorized myself as an alcoholic, but it was definitely my gateway to meth. So that's one of the reasons I cut it out. I just, no, it just lowers my boundaries, and then I'll go to something else.
Right.
Right. And I think the only reason I never got into meth is because I just didn't go places where they had it. You know, I mean, I was a college drunk, you know, and booze was real easy to get a hold of. And get a hold of it, I did. Yeah.
So, Mike, I met you in 2009, and
Yep.
I had never done drugs at that point, and now experienced IML on the other kilter of that, because my last IML experience was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
What was your IML experience, if I may ask, if it's not too personal?
Of course. Well, it's important to note that as a young adult, and I'm talking 14, 15, I dabbled in drugs, you know, so I had a lot of drug experience. And then I had this long history of non-drug use. And when I met you at that IML class of 31, I was not into drugs. I was sober, albeit for a mixed drink now and then. I didn't get drunk at all. I was in great shape. I was clear-headed. I was in the moment. And I think that's how I managed to get through it so well. You know, it wasn't until, going back to my IML experience, it was very positive. It was very wonderful. And I'm really grateful I had that good, positive, you know, time and memory. It wasn't until a couple years later when I started going to other events after I had already been introduced to meth, ironically, by my ex-husband who wanted to try it. And I was very opposed to trying it, you know, and said, no, we were out of town. And I'm like, no, totally wrong. Well, he was very adamant about trying it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to do it alone. It was the miracle drug for me. You know, it made me feel so good and so vigorous and just powerful, and sex just seemed to be so spiritual, you know, and I thought I was having all this connection, and we were getting along fine here on meth. But as we all know, eventually back at IML, I would miss some of the contests, and I was always there to support, you know, the next Mr. Missouri Leather, you know, and cheer on and stuff like that. And then the year after that, I missed even more. And then the year after that, I missed the entire contest. I didn't get out of my room once. And then the year after that, it was just bottom. It was just horrible, even worse than I could ever imagine. I'm really glad I had a great IML in the beginning, but then it just really went sour.
Yeah,
And
it's
other events too.
Sorry?
Other events that I went to while I was going downhill went sour as well. Claw, local events, other events, you know. I missed.
Well, my experience is the same. I was a big I love Berlin Easter. I haven't done Berlin Easter since becoming sober. I have been to Berlin for Folsom, but I haven't actually done my favorite event, which is Easter. And my coming out year would be this year. But as you know, we didn't go anywhere this year. So that has to wait now, which is fine. It's perfectly fine. It was just not meant to be this year, and I'm very happy with myself, and that's perfectly okay. There's not this emotion of missing out anymore. I don't get FOMO as much as I used to. I definitely did when I was still using, and there's like this notion of people doing things without me. Oh my God, no. Because it's as you mentioned, it's a drug that really just turns you into me.
Mm-hmm.
You turn into Beaker, really. And how do you sound? So it's very interesting. You see it bleed into the other events and kind of taint them a bit.
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely taken me a long time to separate that anxiety and those emotions. Perfect example is my first like big club night out. I had to grab a friend because I got triggered by standing in the queue for the bathroom, which is like it's understandable because you would go into the cubicle and do drugs and then go on. So for me, that had that connection, the smell of the cleaning products in the bathroom. It's awful when you realize there's so many connections to things you have to disconnect afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also interesting too that doesn't always go away. You know, I mean, it's been quite a few 24 hours since I've had my last drink. You know, even so, there'll be nights where I've been out at a bar or even at an event, and quite accidentally, somebody will have spilled their drink. You know, beer always seems to hit the floor. I don't know what it is, but just beer. And that was what I drank all the time. And like the smell will just hit me, and I'll just be like, "Sir, you got to go."
And we have an understanding that one of us says, we got to go. Stop what you're doing. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like a safe word in a way.
We're going. It's like, yes.
I've accepted now that if I'm mentally not there or I'm not feeling the event, I'm too old to kind of try to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
It's just easier. Go home, put some TV on, de-stress or decompress, and just go, okay, what went wrong there? Or is it okay just that I went home? Just reassess what happened.
Right.
What was the trigger and what should I look at?
It's amazing how, you were talking about triggers and events earlier. And when you got me recalling about IML and Chicago, and how Chicago was always a wonderful place for me. And when things trailed off, it started to become a very frightful, triggering place for me. Yeah. The more sober I got.
Oh God, yeah.
And the last time we went to IML I was completely sober and I was okay, and I felt like almost like an imposter, like I was, but I wasn't doing anything, And what really helped me was the other people in the sober room. Some of them, I was so afraid to divulge, I'm here, I'm in leather, but I'm playing and I'm not feeling, what's going on with that. There were other people who said, same for me. I'm sure I suited up, but that's about it. And it normalized it for me, which really helped me a lot. But Chicago still had this bad thing for me. And I think it was the following year or two.
It was the following year.
We had an opportunity to house sit for someone during IML who was going to IML, someone who lives there. And I said,
also sober too.
Who's also sober. And I said, Adam, I would like to do other things in Chicago because I only did one thing in Chicago. Yeah. Party, Steamworks, blah, blah, blah. And I need to do some other things to kind of create a positive experience during that time where IML is usually going on. So,
and luckily it was one more place where I had been sober.
Yeah.
And, I did grad school at the University of Chicago. And lived there for a little while after I got back from graduating and working in Japan for a couple of years. So it's weird. Like I've really only known Chicago sober. It's like look, I've only known it sober. And I was able to take him around.
It was very hard though because some friends who were riding with them, we're going to eat somewhere, and it was close to the hotel, and we got out and I saw all these leather guys, gorgeous leather guys. But at the same time I started shaking, I was getting triggered.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah.
What helped me was just being honest with it, telling Adam, was like, I'm really feeling triggered here. Can we make this introduction walkthrough really quick?
Yeah.
And
it wasn't a big deal.
No.
It wasn't a big deal.
I got over it.
It wasn't a big deal to me, yeah.
Well, we always make things bigger than what you really are.
Right.
But it's true. Sit with it, be honest, it'll pass. Do some other things. And I was able to turn Chicago into a more positive event or place for me in my head because we went to the beach one day. I've never been to the beach in Chicago. as many times as I've been to the Chicago, I've never just been there, you know, and doing some other things, which was really nice, you know.
It is about like taking something that's so negative and just kind of putting a positive spin to it. I'm definitely conquering areas I've been before where it has a negative connection. It's funny, I had a friend post a picture of us at Pride in Copenhagen, and my brain just went, I was a dick there. I was out getting high. I almost missed checkout at the hotel, which my friend had kindly booked. And all of a sudden it's like, it's a positive memory for him, but I was a dick. And I just wrote to him, just like, it was a really fun trip, but I do want to apologize because I was not a nice person. I was being awful to you whilst I was there. Ironically enough, I did it twice in Copenhagen where I almost missed my flight. So it's like you get very selfish and self-centered when you use these type of things. Let's see.
Side of it too, you know, we're luckily in a position where, you know, we're taught how to clean up the mess, and we're taught how to do it with dignity, and we're taught how to do it with, you know, a certain degree of knowledge that, okay, we learned a lesson from this and we're able to do it. You know, and, you know, like I said, for me personally, when I was, you know, still out there drinking, never crossed my mind. It's just like, why are you pissed off? I said, I'm sorry, you know, and I know for a fact I couldn't have brought that kind of an attitude into any kind of a relationship, let alone a leather relationship. You know, the one thing that this has really reinforced for me is to remember that relationships and enjoying somebody else is a privilege. You know, and I try not to take advantage of that. I try to keep that at the forefront, you know, especially now, now that, you know, I'm starting to, you know, my own Dom side is starting to emerge now, you know, and, you know, oh boy, you know, the whole concept of privilege changes then, you know, and appreciation and certainly the importance of being there full, you know, and not sort of setting myself to do this thing where it's like, I screw up and then I'm sorry, wait a minute, why are you still mad? So.
Yeah, we've had conversations about like in private conversations where we've talked about like DOMs and SOPs and so on, and I've expressed some of my feelings I have around role play and so on, because I must admit some of the role playing like DOMs and SOPs and so on, I can DOM, but I still have a lack of confidence when it comes to that front, because I feel like a lot of the character or caricature of myself I was doing whilst I was high, there's still I'm naturally dominant in the scene, absolutely. That's always kind of been what I like. I've also very much been a sub and a puppy, but I still have like, there is still this boundary of confidence or lack of confidence when it comes to my being a top with someone, because I'm very much also very attentive to the person I'm with. Is like, am I doing it right? Am I too hard? Am I too soft? Am I doing too little protocol? Am I doing too much? Typical addict brain, kind of overthinking everything. So in most cases, when I play with someone, I kind of go, okay, we can have some guidelines, but we're not going to have a script, because that's just going to ruin it for me. It's just going to completely cause me anxiety the whole way through.
Yeah.
Did you find that in early recovery, Mike, at all? Those type of sensations?
I certainly found a lack of confidence in recovery because I had to rethink everything. I had to relearn everything. And some things that I thought were me were no longer me. You know, I was, at first I thought, wow, I've really gone soft here in the head because I'm really more caring, you know. So it just took some time, you know, to kind of like reconcile all of that and to gain confidence as a sober person. What I had to actually do was just leave the leather, the fetish stuff aside and just work on the principles and work on becoming comfortable in my own skin,
Mm.
and then letting whoever I am develop and come back or come better or whatever. I just had to let go and have trust that I may not come back as the person that I was, but is that so bad? I can be better, you know, and I can say goodbye to that other person and not have a real strong association with. I can remember that person, but also I can let myself develop and feel free enough to just let it happen, you know. I will say, today I am much aware of what goes on in someone's head. You know, I'm very much for, what's the word I'm looking for? Looking at body language, at every type of thing, which is something that I used to do. And being I was a therapist for 30 years, I'm very keen on body language, cues, nonverbal cues, stuff like that. And that always helps, you know, especially in play with someone and, you know, being in the head and knowing, like, especially with Adam, things that I may want to do, I'm not going to do because I know he can't go there yet. And he may not ever be able to go there to do some of the fetishes that I like. But that's okay because I've had a lot of those experiences in my years. And what's really weird with this whole spirituality thing and the recovery thing, you know, is like I'm no longer searching for that next scene, that next thing. And we're a sexually monogamous couple, you know, which in our culture is a little bit, you know,
That's freaky.
Like, oh my God, I found a unicorn. I don't know.
Now we will play S&M and other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it comes down to the sex, blah, 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 that's, you know, we keep that us. And when I was telling friends, you know, and other people, you know, I'm going to be, you know, monogamous, and they're like, you? You? And believe me, you know, I'm no more surprised than you are. I never was monogamous at, you know, any of my relationships, you know. But I find that in working the recovery program, having a better sense of spirituality, there is a contentment and a satisfaction that I have in my current life that I don't need to pursue the next scene. Not that it's not important to anyone else, you know. If it's important to someone, that's great. And Adam and I have had conversations that with me kind of like going off this way and him experiencing a dom side, there's always room for discussions. Is monogamy still right for us? Or do you need something else, you know? And we check in with each other every so often. So how is this going? You know, how are your needs being met? You know, is my needs being met, you know? Because there's some things that, you know, I just can't do to him because my boy is also my husband, you know. And one of my fetishes,
And a delicate little flower too,
like a Venus flytrap.
Oh, yeah.
I
I don't know. Cue the drag race rattle sound right now. I don't know.
You understand. But one of my fetishes that I always liked was treating someone like an object. As long as it was the right person.
Yeah.
You know? I love Adam. I can't treat him like an object. I do a little bit, but I only go so far, and I give him the cues of what I want him to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I can't go any further than that. You know?
Yeah, it's like with any relationship, it's communication. It's,
oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and that's where you see nowadays a lot of relationship not work because people just don't talk to each other. It's so simple. It's such a simple recipe. I'm not saying I can say it. I'm not saying I have done it in the past. I've probably been equally bad at not communicating. But also now I'm just like, I don't really have time to play games. I just rather just go, okay, this is not working. Should we try this way instead? And I see relationship break down because of that so often. People
Right.
give up too quickly because they don't just sit down and have an adult conversation about it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, there have even been things where I've said to you too, where it's just like, no, I want you to go harder on this. I want you to do something like this. And, you know, believe me, even asking for that requires, you know, a certain degree of courage and a certain degree of, you know, acknowledgement that I may say that, I may try it, I may not like it, but at least I'll have the, at least I'll be honest about what I want, you know, and, you know, which is, again, such an important thing. You know, when I told you before I came out of sobriety, and I remember having the discussion with it. It was another AA member who was gay at the time, and I said, I can't reconcile this. I can't seem to believe that this is what my higher power wants in sobriety. And I remember what I said very clearly. You know, you don't have to come out, but you may be happier if for no other reason than you're at least being truthful about how you feel. You know, and sure enough, he was right. You know, and I've put a lot of stock in that. You know, just because it's like, okay, you know, I'm feeling this way about it. This is something I want to try. This is something I want to do. If it turns out to not be the right thing, at least I'm honest at the moment about whether or not it's something I want to continue to do. You know, and I think that that's also been my attitude when it came to getting into leather. You know, I mean, at first it was a big exercising courage for me because I was the kind of drunk that it was like, you know, I was like tofu. I took on the flavor of whatever was around me, you know, and, you know, I thought I would dress the part and get into the crowd and drink it, and, it ends up taking you to Japan wearing a kimono, drinking sake, and, you know, no matter how much sake, I couldn't drink myself into being Japanese, you know, so, you know, believe me, every fruitless effort to try to fit in with the crowd that I thought I wanted to belong to, it never really worked out. But, you know, the nice thing about what sobriety has made possible for me is that I was able to come to leather and say, I don't know if this is really what I want. And I don't know yet if this is something that I'm going to like, but at least I'll have been present enough to say, okay, I got to give this a try. That way I'm not being, you know, opinionated without upfront information. I will actually be speaking on my experience rather than just being prejudiced. You know, and I come back to that point a lot. I come back to that point a whole lot, just because, you know, there are moments too where I feel like a loser and I don't feel like, you know, it's like got the right thing on, but I don't feel authentic.
Yeah.
You know, and I just got to remember, you know, okay, that, you know, that's part of the addict brain, you know, is second guessing myself like that, you know, and to remember not to be afraid of it and to not assume that, you know, that a moment of feeling inauthentic necessarily means I'm being inauthentic. You know, it's just, you know.
I think that's human nature.
It's just, yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah.
You know.
The funny thing is I wind up with other sober leathermen and they all talk about having the same thing all the time, you know, and it's like, oh, it's normal.
It's that recognition of, oh, you too.
Yeah,
exactly. It just makes things so much easier. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to people in my group on RealClearFetish and so on, and it's the same storyline I hear again and again and again, and I'm just like, yeah, me too. Yeah. It's not a problem. Yep. Please bring it to the table because you would be surprised how many think like that.
Yeah, identification saves the day. I mean, it worked when we were all early in our sobriety. It's still, you know.
Yeah, it's just so important. So, Mike, you were a therapist. You kind of touched a little bit on it. How does that? Do you integrate some of that into your dom side as well? Because you know how to look at someone and
maybe. We had a
mind games. You play mind games with people.
I do like a mind game. It's quite fun.
Not in the therapy session, so to speak, but I do enjoy getting into someone's head, and I'm usually pretty good after discussing with someone, just getting to know them a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. We had a motto in grad school. The back of our shirts, well, we said like budding therapist, and on the back it said, "Your mind is our playground." It, it is. It's almost equally as fun as getting into someone's head for me, as much as it is the sex or BDSM or whatever, you know. And I do enjoy getting into someone's head in play and not using it against anyone, but knowing what is there that can enhance it just enough for the other person and for myself. Adam saw it firsthand
Yes.
a year ago or so, because because he's never quite seen that process that I do, and he had mentioned before that he wants me to go harder. I have to really modify. I love rough impact play, and I can go really hard, and got a tooth knocked out once, and I was proud of that, and that felt great. I don't bruise. It's just weird. So I have to be really careful, and this person that we were privileged to have the permission of his sir to do some BDSM with, Adam was working him over and doing a really good job, because we were there trying to help his blossoming dom side. And he did real well. And then, you're welcome, boy. And then the sir said, "Do I want to take over?" And I'm like, "Oh." And he got to see a part of me that existed prior to meeting you that you've never witnessed before.
It was lovely. Oh my
And
God,
it was
lovely.
fun. It was fun,
It was lovely.
And afterwards, I was like, wow, I haven't been that hard, that into someone's head in a long time, and it felt great. But still, it wasn't something that's like, I gotta have it again, gotta have it again. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah. What was really important was that part of me that was back then as a Leatherman just came back and said, "You're not dead. He's still there." Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah. So that was a very rewarding experience and very affirming.
Well, that's kind of bringing back to what I mentioned is when the book mentions fetish in there, it's a bit demonized in the book, but for someone like us, where we had fetish before drug taking, particularly, we found out we were into kink before we were into to the drug taking. It's just nice to rediscover some of the sides we used to do, but in a healthy way as well. Yeah. There's definitely things where I've kind of trod water and just made sure, just like, am I doing this for the right reasons? Mm-hmm. One of the things is you just like, don't engage with behaviors that would lead you down a wrong path, which I fully agree with. But it's also exploring, just like, what works, what doesn't work. Talk about if it didn't, and just pull it back.
And one of the things that really helped me too, and you talk about getting in the head and therapy and stuff like that. I too, when I first got sober, thought I had to get rid of all my leather stuff. This is all over, and a couple of people just told me to chill, The good thing that I had too was I was also in therapy, and I had a really good therapist who said, why don't you just pause? Why don't you just pause? And what really helped me was, like going to events, suiting up, showing up, but I didn't have to play. I didn't have to do anything. And that one IML that we went to, my first IML sober, the next step for me was I suited up and showed up, but I packed some toys for us in the suitcase, but we didn't use them. But I was inching closer, and it was a gradual thing. And I think that, for me, I can only speak for me, was the best thing to do to kind of reconcile the drugs, the fetish, bring the fetish back, but don't have any expectations that I'm going to just perform and do this and do that. It was kind of like, just reinforcing in a safe way, and taking it a step further each time.
Mm-hmm. It just a little bit. I think when I reach 2 years, I write poetry as well, and one of the things I kind of wrote about that day, I wrote a poem where I kind of mentioned that you're like, you can have gone so far, but you can just turn back, and there's the addiction. It's you're not further away from your last use up kind of thing. And it's so important that, yes, you get far, but it just takes that wrong decision to just not obliterate everything you've done. You will not lose your recovery. You won't lose the things you've done over the last couple of years, but it will just, well, you'd lose your clean time if that comes down to it, and that can be quite soul destroying for a lot of people. So how did you two meet?
I talked to him.
He was contacting me on Facebook while I was still using, before I got sober.
I didn't know this, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
good you pointed that out, just to start with. I did not know he was using.
and then I got sober, and he was contacting me, and I had built up such a wall. I was in a 25-year relationship, going through a divorce. We were legally married for 8 of those years, because we got married.
I remember that time. I think we were chatting a bit at that point.
Yes. It was a very hard time for me, and I had a huge wall built. Yeah. And I was already reconciling the fact that, you know what, I'm done with relationships. I'm going to stay single. I don't need anything, the wall is there. And I would occasionally get these things on Facebook like, oh, daddy, hi, this is what I want. I want you to do this and this, 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 and that, and that. I'd be like, oh, it got so tiring after a while. And here comes him, who he's very respectful and asks a question, and I'm just, if I respond at all, it's a one-word answer. Yes,
one-word answer.
No, and I would wait a week to respond, and I was just like, ugh,
And of course, Leatherman on the way to happen at the time, it just made me want to try harder, and one day I just decided to play my ace in the hole. I was in Boston on a layover, and I wrote the first paragraph of a Sir Boy story. And
this is after what, 2-3 months of communicating with me.
There was no communicating. I was talking. You were.
You were talking to him. He wasn't talking back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And which is precisely the reason why it's like, at that point I had nothing left to lose. So I wrote the paragraph of a Sir Boy exchange. Because, again, you mentioned the writing, too. I'm also a writer, and I've written, stuff like this. I wrote a Sir Boy paragraph, and then skipped a line and wrote in parentheses, you write the next paragraph. And figured, he won't do it. Whatever.
I love those.
By God, he did.
That caught my attention, and I wrote the next paragraph.
And then I wrote one, and then he wrote one.
And then we would twist things, in each other's benefits. He would put the paragraph like he had the upper hand, and then I would write the next one going, so he thought he had the upper hand. The bushes was lurking,
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I like to say he took 2 bricks out of my wall up here in my face. And that's when I started asking him questions like, who are you? What are you about? And
yeah. Well, the interesting thing too, and like I said, at the time I didn't know he was also newly sober, and we've had people say to us, so this was a 13th step call that stayed, and I'm like, no, it really wasn't a 13th step call, because I wasn't really interested in sex. I wasn't even really interested in a relationship. I wanted to learn about leather.
Oh, let me just pull back. Explain 13 stepping.
Oh, 13 stepping is,
because not everyone's going to know that.
Oh, yeah. 13 stepping basically is taking advantage, a person who's been in with time taking advantage of a new sexually, just sort of taking advantage of the heart and taking advantage of the lack of contact. You know, and I wasn't interested in doing that. I am not interested in doing that even today. I wanted to learn about leather. And
leather was something I could speak
that
of
was
in a
something we
safe
could
way.
speak of, exactly. And that's,
You know?
like I said, it really wasn't supposed to be anything other than an educational relationship. But as I said earlier, I make plans and God laughs. So, you know.
Well, look at him, for fuck's sake.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
shucks.
Isn't he sexy?
Well, he's okay.
For a senior citizen.
It's the bus pass that does that. Yeah.
There you go. Very. That's pass.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hey, listen, on behalf of all the guys who like their daddies, I feel you. I feel you. We like you. Just say thank you. Thank you, boy.
Thank you, boy. Thank you.
Well, you have the pleasure of Mike as a daddy. You were more of a naughty uncle at IML.
I was very at IML.
You look very different now. I would
Thank
say an improvement.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you're quite wonderful yourself.
I look the same, to be honest. I'm sure I have a
Never
painting
age.
addict.
You never age. How do you do it?
There's a picture of Doris Gray in his closet.
Scandinavian, that's what it is.
There you go.
Oh, you're so lucky.
It's in the water. I don't know. I have looked at pictures from myself at IML, and I do look a bit older now, I must admit.
It suits you well.
Thank you. I'm noticing that we are coming down to the last 3 minutes.
Okay.
So how would we wrap up?
Okay.
This is the last episode. It's been absolutely immense to have you both on, especially like a freeway here. I've had a couple of comments on here kind of going, ooh, I like a threesome. It's like, it's not Cam 4. I pointed this out several times. So as someone, if you could advise someone in early recovery, what would you say, especially when you're trying to engage with fetish?
You're not alone.
He said it very well. Reach out to other sober people. Reach out to the groups that are there. There are people doing what we do, sober, who have experience, who have been where you are. That place of fear, that place of unknown, that place of not knowing where you even fit in, or do you fit in anymore. I went through all of that. Reach out, be honest, and say what you're feeling, because there's someone else is there to help you.
Fantastic. And Adam, would you want to finish something quickly?
I think just to remember that, you know, it's, like I said, it's still there for you to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It is still fun. It is going to be different, but, you know,
it can be better.
It can be better. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I definitely feel my fetish life is much better for it. And also with the experience, I don't want to say it isn't there, but I feel I'm richer with the experience.
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, thank you for coming on and chatting with me. It's been absolutely lovely.
Much. So good to see you.
Have a great evening, and we'll chat soon.
You bet. Send us some water.
I will. Yeah. I'm keeping it for myself. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Oh, that was really lovely to have them both on, coming down to the last 20 seconds. It's been such a joy to do these episodes. This was the 8th episode and the last of the season. I will be republishing all the live streams on the YouTube channel RealClearFetish. I will be doing that in the next coming weeks. But thank you for joining in. Thank you for the comments. It's been absolutely lovely. Stay safe, stay sober, stay sexy.